Only children are drawn into the nowhere, a realm teeming with endless nightmares. But what about adults? A quarter will be granted to them when the toll set in torments is paid. What is the dark fate of every adult in the world of Little Nightmares? Hey! Welcome to my channel, everyone. I'm the globalcherry, and we will discuss this today. Before we begin, subscribe, like the video, and enjoy the show.
I want some solitude! Ah!
In the nowhere, adults are always monsters that are feared or preyed upon, but at some point they were children themselves. This universe preys on kids who feel neglected or unloved, corrupting their innocent soul. In the Sounds of Nightmares podcast, we see how Noon's counselor Otto drove her to accept the ferryman's offer in leaving her world behind. Otto prioritized his own desires to find his sister Cece over Noon's well-being. To Noon, the nowhere seems like paradise compared to her reality, as it offered to take away her pain and tempted her with gifts like jewelry and clothing. But in this world, nothing is ever free. A toll must be paid, and the line between childhood and adulthood is drawn by one fragile thread, your inner child. In the nowhere, that thread is ruthlessly unraveled. Now let's delve into the adults. The Thinman, the central antagonist of Little Nightmares 2, is a tall figure with his emaciated frame and eerily curious expression. He stalks Mono across dreams and reality within the transmission, a broadcast that turns Pale City's residents into mindless, TV-addicted husks. The Thinman's abilities, telekinesis, TV teleportation, and time manipulation mirror Mono's own powers. And for a good reason. The Thinman is Mono, betrayed by someone he once trusted. Mono's anger and despair slowly consumed him. Over time he grew older, colder, and more vengeful, until the boy he once was faded completely. Now he actively works to sever the inner child from young souls like the toddler, leaving behind their glitchy remnants. Growing up may be inevitable, but in the nowhere, accepting that reality comes at a terrible cost. It strips away everything that made you human, leaving you with one grim purpose: to inflict the same torment on others. In the recent Little Nightmares 3 trailer, we're introduced to a new monster. The Supervisor, an elderly woman with 6 arms and a towering 1960s beehive hairstyle, driven by insatiable greed. She obsessively monitors the candy factory's security feeds, always on the lookout for ways to cut costs. Her overworked employees are crushed under relentless demands, stress-eating candy to endure the grind. When they falter, they're forcibly dragged back to their stations to toil away. But today, she notices an irregularity that could threaten her precious profits. 2 children eating her merchandise, low and alone. The Supervisor doesn't take kindly to intruders, so with a sharp crack of her 6 wrist joints, she hunts these little vermin using her cameras. The Purple Man is another creature from the podcast, forcing children like Rusty to perform at his carnival, like an exploitative YouTube parent. Instead of eyes on his head, his vision comes from his doll, the dummy. While he compels children to entertain the crowd, his true motives are selfish. He craves praise for himself, driven by an egotism that overshadows any concerns for his victims. The Janitor from Little Nightmares 1 has a fedora, stubby legs, unnervingly long arms, and bandages tightly wrapped over his eyes. Within the maw, he served 2 roles, maintaining its mechanical cogwork and capturing any lingering rats. According to the official website, the Janitor fled his world and found refuge in the maw. Could he be from Pale City, where TV transmissions might have impaired his vision? Perhaps he covered his distorted eyes out of shame. In a place where he's finally accepted, he's adapted to rely on touch as his primary sense, abandoning sight entirely in his pursuit of purpose. The Doctor has spent so much time crawling along the ceilings that gravity has taken its toll, leaving his skin sagging unnaturally, with swollen gums, pale skin, and a filthy button-up coat. He is a grotesque figure driven by a twisted obsession with perfection. Patients seek him in pursuit of their own ideal forms, but he sees them as nothing more than playthings.
Oh, okay, get away from me!
To stave off his boredom, he replaces their flesh with porcelain, reshaping them to his liking, while ensuring they remain alive. The butler from Very Little Nightmares is a floating elderly man bound by golden cuffs that lock his arms behind his back. Clad in a classic butler's tuxedo, he uses telekinesis to perform household chores, ironing clothes, doing laundry, serving tea, and attends to the pretender, the childlike ruler of the nest. As a child, the butler was gifted with extraordinary powers like other children in this universe. But as he aged, his control over these abilities began to wane. Fearing what he might do to their daughter, the pretender's parents locked his powers away with the cuffs as a suppressor. The parents being the Hanging Man and the Lady of the Maw. In Little Nightmares 1, the Hanging Man looms ominously over a suspiciously small chair. A letter, presumably his final words, suggests he ended his own life, but the chair beneath him is far too short to tip over, which hints his death might not have been by his own hand. Before his demise, he lived in Pale City and started a family. Using his wife's influence, he ensured their daughter was placed in a prestigious setting like the Nest, the training ground for the Maw's next leader, as depicted in their family portrait in Very Little Nightmares. Yet after his death, his wife, the lady, showed no remorse. Perhaps it was hard to see her reaction beneath the featureless porcelain mask she wore with her geisha attire. The lady had no time for sentimentality. Her focus was on ruling the Maw and luring guests to indulge in endless feasts until they met their grim fates. To retain her beauty, gluttonous guests either became food themselves or fell victim to the lady's life absorption powers. Her obsession with beauty is evident in the portraits adorning her quarters, idealized depictions far removed from reality. Much like monarchs, she sought to mask her insecurities through art. Cold, calculated, and self-absorbed, the lady's heart held no room for others but herself, not even for her own daughter, who was left in the care of the butler and the craftsman.
I was never here.
The craftsman is a wheelchair-bound old man with grotesquely long arms, twisted backwards, legs, and blackened fingernails that claw at the air. A resourceful yet unnerving figure, he devotes himself to the pretender's happiness by crafting dolls pieced together from children for her amusement. The granny from Secrets of the Maw is far from the warm, cookie-baking grandma we'd hoped for. Once rumored to be the former Lady of the Maw, she now rots in its watery depths, surrounded by decay and consumed by rage. With her wrinkled face and sagging neck, she has the face every grandkid loves when hunting for food or capturing our DLC protagonist, the runaway kid. Driven by her twisted nature and growing impatience, her pursuit for us is relentless and swift. The hunter, his face shrouded by a tattered burlap sack, prowls the misty wilderness of Pale City with a rusted shotgun and a flickering lantern-style flashlight. A relic of his past lingers in the swamp he's called home since childhood, a heart carved into a log, a bittersweet hint of a long-lost love. Isolated and consumed by solitude, he turned to taxidermy, obsessively hunting anything that moves and preserving their lifeless forms as a grim attempt to fill the void of his crushing loneliness.
I shouldn't have taken your class!
The teacher stalks the dimly lit halls in her modest attire, her expression frozen in eerie detachment. With the sharp crack of her ruler, she enforces an iron grip over her students, where misbehavior is met with swift, unforgiving punishment. Children are to be seen, not heard, and if she hears you, pray she doesn't catch you. Her unnaturally long neck can stretch and twist beyond the confines of her classroom, making escape nearly impossible. Meanwhile, the principal lounges in his office, two branches protruding from his eyes. He turns a blind eye to the abuse, almost as if he had no eyes at all. In the cafeteria, the lunch lady has already fallen victim to the very slop she served to the children. The barber was infamous in Pale City and the Maw. He was a humanoid adult with wrinkled skin, a curly middle part hairstyle, and a giant pair of scissors. His eerie concept art draws inspiration from German folklore, particularly the tale of the tailor, who punished a child for thumb-sucking by severing their thumb.
Help me, please.
The twin chefs are a grotesque duo, putting their blood, sweat, and tears into feeding the passengers of the maw. With a love for violence and a hunger for meat, they are perfectly suited for their culinary duties. Shuffling across the cold floor, they chop, mince, and prepare feasts. But something disturbs them, an unwelcome, dirty presence. Their cleaver will be put to good use as they eliminate any vermin in their kitchen. One twin has a wide mouth, while the other has a puckered mouth with crossed eyes. The shoe monster and dump monster are creatures that lurk beneath piles, revealing their presence by tossing shoes or waste when they sense a disturbance. The Bellman, another cut character from Little Nightmares 1, was featured at Gamescom. This melting man watches through a two-way mirror, likely serving as the lady's guard, given that a painting of him hangs in her headquarters. Lastly, there's the Ferryman, a mysterious figure in a trench coat who speaks through a sagging, dripping face. He has a singular purpose: to track down traumatized children and offer them a way out of their harsh realities. But at what cost? Little Nightmares distorts reality, exposing the raw, unsettling emotions of adulthood. In the eerie world of the nowhere, you're trapped in a vicious cycle where tormented children become the tormentors. But is escape possible? Little Nightmares 3 may hold the answer, but in simple terms, a lesson that comes from the Little Nightmares universe is being an adult sucks. That is all for today. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to subscribe, like the video, especially if you love Little Nightmares. What are your thoughts on my theory regarding the children and the adults in the nowhere? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and that's all.